So in creating the style sheet, I decided to make it relatively simple. I didn't want to use a ton of extra colors or really anything because I felt like there was so much material to cover. I wanted to take advantage of white space and make sure that whatever viewer was looking at it that they could understand it to the absolute T. I have a section here devoted to the logo and the different ways that we can use the logo, as well as the different versions of it and when to use those specific versions. In setting up the style guide, I decided to use a 3-column grid, and each of these grids are, each column of the grid is 900 pixels width, and the gutter width is 16. This just helped me line up all of the titles here. I'll just browse you through it really quickly. You can click here and it opens for you. I have a typography section naming the 3 different fonts used on all platforms. I have the color palette that we drew upon, as well as the hex codes here and a description of why we use these specific colors. I have several examples of the graphics used. I wanted to cover them all, so I showed different parts of it on each different poster that was created for our promo element. I have the social media icons that were used as the footer in the mobile app, as well as on the website. I showed some of the icons that we used, graphics on the map, imagery used across all platforms. I wanted to set this up so that you could see the different options that we have, as well as give any viewer the ability to actually save these here if you were to access it through Adobe XD, as well as the map that we used. And then the basic web guidelines just outlining the grid that we used, which was for the mobile app specifically, which was a 68 pixel column width and the gutter width of 10 pixels, and then include the buttons that we used on both the mobile app and on the web page. So here we have the Blues Brews official logo. I made this in Adobe Illustrator, and I'm going to walk you through my process of that. So there are 2 different fonts used in this logo. The first font that we used was Cheap Pine Regular. That is what was used on both of the Bs. We really liked the shadow that stuck out behind them and thought that it really made those predominant. And then I decided to use Cheap Pine Sans on the rest of the words just to make sure that they were incredibly readable. We weren't sure, we don't know how big this logo is going to be sometimes or how small it's going to be, so we felt that it was important to make sure that users can read it. To create the background image, I found an 80s print online, and I used the image trace function to trace it into here. I did the 16 color trace option, even though there aren't 16 colors. I just liked the variety of them. You can see them here. This was a great decision. 1, because it made it fully vector. 2, because I can actually manipulate each of these individual shapes, change the color of it, change the path of it, and that is what I did to create the black area behind Blues Brews.
Our app opens up with a splash screen with a background color sampled from the logo. After that loads, it moves on to the home page, which I will show you here. Like the splash screen, the headings of the mobile app pages have a color sampled from the logo. This one also has a tagline for the brewery. Then you see prominently featured the name of the Design Your Own Can program we have implemented. This is the added feature to our app that we felt would be a creative and fun bonus people would download the app to use. And to use it, you just click a different can color or logo color, and it shows you different can designs. There's also a pattern you can choose, or a pattern logo. So then you can see that the app and the home page are organized in a 3-column system, and that is seen prominently in the navigation bar that will take you to the other pages that we have in addition to this program. So the first we'll go to is the beers, which just shows you the 4 different beers that Blues Brewing does. So to get more information on them, you just have to click one of the cans, and it will show you more of a description and the name. To navigate back, you just click the arrow, or you can click beers, and it takes you back there. So next is events, and like the mobile app, I just use a list of events rather than a calendar because it's less colored or cluttered, and there really isn't enough events that a brewery holds that you would need a monthly calendar like that, and it just wouldn't be usable on mobile. The text also highlights the happy hour event, which is what this brewery most wants to promote, so that is highlighted up there. And then there's the Find Us page, which I felt like is still information people would be expecting from this app. And you have what you absolutely need to know, which is when it's open and where it is. And then you have something to click where you can get directions to it. So to navigate back to the home page, you would just click the logo, and it takes you back to the CanDesign app and the home page. So our mobile website was intended to look somewhat similar to the desktop website, but be a bit scaled down, which included only having 2 buttons for events and our beers, which we felt like were 2 of the more common things people would be visiting the mobile website for. Also, location was included very prominently on the home page, because that's probably something people are looking to use when they're using the mobile website and they're on the go. So I'll show you in the prototype how you navigate to the other pages that are not as featured. I chose to use a hamburger button because I feel like that is something that most people are familiar with at this point and know what it does. So then you can use that to navigate to the About Us page. This page has a lot of text, but I chose a font and made it big enough to be readable for people to get a sense of what the brewery is about, because I felt like that was something still important to include on the mobile website. So it has a lot of white space and is a pretty simple page for that reason. So next we can go to the Our Beers page, which gives a rundown of the beers that this brewery does. We use the heading text that we chose for our style for this brand, and the body text features a color from each can design to keep everything cohesive and to know what goes with which beer easily. So those are the 4 beers that this brewery has, with each can design prominently shown. And next you can visit the events page, which mostly features the happy hour that this brewery does, because that is their recurring event that they want to feature the most. Typing on a mobile phone is never going to be as easy as on a desktop, but the contact form should have big enough elements where it's easy to click on and type in a message and get a response from this brewery. So that is our mobile website.
And right here we have used the cheap fine font. And then down below you can see that we have the sans version of that font. And then right here in the center I placed the logo and added a nice shadow in the background to kind of give it some dimension. And then right here, this white little banner right there is kind of tucked nice and neat behind it while still on top of the shadow, as you can notice right here. And then down in the bottom left we have our social media handlebar for our Twitter and Instagram. And to top it all off, I have added a nice white border around the edges. And then also we have added a shadow behind this text right here to again give it some more dimension. And I'll go ahead and show the other colors again. So here's the red and the yellow, and right here we have our t-shirt design template. Again, I chose that drop shadow in the background to kind of stick with the theme, make it consistent. I added the logo on the front, and then also in the back I enlarged it, and then put our tagline right underneath it, again using that same cheap pine font with the regular above and the sans below. Some of the colors that it is available in, and this is also going to be our same color palette that we have throughout our design. Lastly, we have our Twitter banner. I decided to go ahead and do a nice simple background of just a beer on top of a nice wooden bar. Kind of just adds more realism to it. And then again, I used that same font with our tagline. Created a shadow effect below that to create more dimension so it's not so flat. And that concludes our promotional elements.
To be more knowledgeable about the things going on around them. Their consumption, they're a very traditional purchaser. They are habitual, and price is very important. So these are typically the people that are going to come to make a tradition of coming to every single happy hour, because that's when they can get the cheapest beer, those types of things. Reap the repercussions of it later. They're much more of the I'd rather do it and say sorry later than ask for permission and not ever get a chance to do it. These are your risk takers. And I put this little note, I think that these people would enjoy classic rock. They do have some needs. They want directness, much kind of like our informed people. They want to be told exactly what they've asked you, and that's the blunt one. This is the courageous one. So this is going to be our hero guy. This one. So the courageous one has attributes of being an extreme kind of adventurous thrill seeker. They don't always shy away from things maybe that they should, but they are always up for a challenge, and they want to be challenged, probably in physical fitness and also in everyday life.